Well, hello there and welcome. I'm Jeremiah Martin, and thank you for tuning in on this Saturday. Hope everything is sounding good at your end. We are in a Stanford year. This is 100 years since he passed, and Stanford is a composer who is dear to my heart. I'm an Irishman living abroad, and so was Sir Charles Villiers Stanford. And I've been spending the past little while becoming more familiar with his music, and it's my goal this year to learn as much of it as possible. A big goal is to learn and perform all of the Stanford organ sonatas. I played one of them last year, and I'm currently working up Sonata Eroica. So the major portion of this stream, we're going to look at Sonata Eroica together. One of the movements is pretty much ready for prime time. Another one, not quite so much yet, but we're going to look at it because I think it's helpful to kind of hear what somebody is thinking or how this music means something to me. But to get us all started, these are the short preludes and postludes of Stanford, and I just wanted to share a couple of them with you because they really are a potted version of the essence of Stanford and his keyboard writing in particular. That was number two from the first set. I remember my organ teacher in Ireland, Francis Moore, taught me that many years ago, but it is so much fun to play. It was perhaps one of the biggest pieces of music I learned early on, but it's really a lot of fun and definitely worth looking at. Right after number two comes number three from that set, and it's a very different side of Stanford. This is a much softer motif, but what you're going to notice here is a constantly moving pedal line. And those of us that have been really getting to know Stanford's music, he seems to have restless feet. Lots of activity in the pedal line is certainly characteristic of his music. And this piece really shows that. So without further ado, I'm going to launch into number three from the first set. I hope you enjoy. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's Absolutely gorgeous. Well, again, thank you all for tuning in this Saturday. And I'm just going to take a quick look at the live chat here. I am absolutely thrilled to see a number of familiar faces here. Thank you all for showing up and supporting. Always when starting something new, one never knows. But I really, really appreciate the support. So, my gosh, I'm sorry if I miss anybody here, but Matt Leach, thank you for tuning in. Graham, thank you so much for your support. Maurice, wonderful to have you here with us. And Razbuz, thank you. Cameron, greetings to you and the gang. Jez, thank you so much. Great to see you here. And Aaron, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Make sure I don't miss anybody here. I'll try not to. Good Chappie, good to have you with us. Looking forward to some new uploads from you too. And definitely go check out Good Chappie's channel. In fact, a lot of the folks here, we have some really, really great talent here. My gosh, thank you all. And Brooks, wonderful to have you in the house. I'm sorry, I can't type my usual response, but I know you'll take care of that for us. Great. So I think I've caught everybody there. So let's see if I've missed anybody. Oh, a little further down the list here. George, thank you so much for tuning in. Wonderful. It's so great to see so many friendly faces and just to see you all tuning in. And I see Second Presbyterian here as well. Thank you so much. We, of course, will have shenanigans here in town before too much longer. Anyhow, as I was saying, we were taking a look at the music of Sir Charles Villiers Stanford. And one of the things that I am planning to do during these streams is take a little bit of a look at the man and learn a little bit more about his life. So as I mentioned, born in 1837, died in 1914, and much like myself, I was born in Galway in the west of Ireland, grew up in Ireland. It's very much my home, but now find myself living in the United States. Sir Charles Villiers Stanford grew up in Ireland, in Dublin, Anglo-Irish, and moved to England. So this is just a brief outline of his timeline. You'll see he moved around quite a bit and some of his influences that we will hear in the music. So he became organist at Cambridge after being a student there in the 1870s. Moved on, he actually studied in Leipzig. And something that we're going to talk about during these streams is the German connection and the importance it had with the development of English Romantic organ music. So there's fascinating threads that we're starting to unravel with all of these folks. Ultimately, he moved to Windsor in 1915 during the Great War. He was not a fan of everything that was going on and ultimately passed away in 1924. And just to show how that overlaid, he was very much a Victorian era composer, but did live through the brief Edwardian era and overlaps with the modern era. He was a tutor to many of the famous composers that we're going to look at during the course of these streams. And let's see, I'm just seeing a note here that I may have stream bitrate issues. So do let me know in the chat if there are any problems with the audio. Right now it looks like I'm seeing a healthy stream, but just in case. So anyhow, I did want to briefly mention, we'll talk about this too, what was going on in Ireland at the time. So my country was, there was great upheaval and transition to ultimately independence, which happened in 1922. So all of this was happening during Stanford's lifetime. So, as I mentioned, an Irishman living abroad. And I myself am rediscovering how much my own music of my homeland means to me. And we'll be hearing more about that in due course. But that is something that has also drawn me to Stanford's music, because I hear so many of the threads and influences of the music that he would have heard, but also he was so important in preserving music from across the pond for him, but back in the homeland. So many of the hymn tunes and traditional Irish songs he was responsible for preserving. And before we move on to Eroica, we're going to look at one more of the short preludes, number 5, is founded on an Irish church melody. And some of you may recognize the hymn tune in here, but you'll see the kind of treatment he gave this. Let's go ahead and have a listen to number 5 from set 1. And I will see you right after this. There we go. Isn't that pretty? So I'm just taking a quick look here. Again, thank you all. It looks like stream is sounding good. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you all so much. And yeah, that truly is such a beautiful setting. And Graham, you got it. The King of Love. Absolutely. So my organist friends out there, if any of you don't play Stanford yet, I would say absolutely go ahead and grab a copy of 105 and 106. 105 in particular has some really accessible numbers in it, and it's just an absolutely beautiful way to get started with Stanford. So we're here to talk about the sonatas, which is my big project for this year. So last year I got started with Sonata Celtica, and to give you a bit of a backstory, this all started almost 2 years ago, I think now. I was visiting back home, Galway, Ireland, visiting my friend Mark Keane, and we were talking about Stanford. And I had just finished some other, Victorian organ sonatas at the time. And Mark suggested, you really need to learn Stanford. And I said, which one? And he said, Sonata Celtica, then all of them. So we're at the then all of them part of the project. So I've played Celtica and look forward to playing it again this year. It's an absolutely fantastic work. So he wrote 5 organ sonatas, and these were written at the tail end of his career. So he is well known and remembered for his English choral tradition, but he also wrote for piano. He wrote, as I mentioned, song cycles, and his organ works are not, certainly the sonatas are not performed as often as they should, and there is just so much to them. Of the 5, Numbers 2, 3, and 4 are really major works. Number 1 is very technically challenging. I have it mostly under the fingers, but we're going to wait a while before we hear that. I really want that one to set. But we're going to hear number 2. I really would like to have number 2 complete in time for Easter. So if you subscribe to the channel here, you'll be notified of that and hear that upload in due course when it's ready. Sonata number 3 is subtitled Britannica. Sonata number 4 is Celtica. And then number 5 is based on one of his own hymn tunes. One of the things I love about Stanford's music is, as we've heard in the short preludes, really memorable tunes. You're kind of left with these wonderful tunes and really wonderful and unexpected harmony at some time. You can really hear the German Romantic influence. As I mentioned, he spent some time in Leipzig, and he really did appreciate the music of Brahms. So there's a lot of that influence in his music. But let me go ahead and open up this score, and we will take a closer look at Sonata Celtica. And let's see. So I want to move on to here initially. Okay, so I've been trying all kinds of technology things. Those of you that know me well know that I love to play with technology. So hopefully this will work. There we go. If all goes according to plan, you can now see the iPad that I'm looking at, which also means you can see all the wrong notes I play. So the other thing, so I was just thinking about this morning. I really am a fan of the sonata form in general, where you have these, a complete work. And there are some fun quotes out there. One of them I remember is that sonata form, you have frequently 3 movements, where in the first movement, the composer shows us how well they can compose. In the second movement, how well they can feel. It's the very emotional movement. And the third is how happy they are to be done with it all. But that said, the third movement in a sonata form usually is a very joyous and uplifting movement. The other thing about sonata form we'll talk about a little is how these melodies are structured. And the reason I wanted to do this is I know that when I first sit down and hear one of these that I have not heard before, it sounds very impressive, but then on the second, third, and fourth listening, you really start to get more from it. So my hope with some of these streams will be, screen's going to sleep here. We're not ready for that. Hopefully I'm not putting you to sleep. But hopefully get you over some of that initial learning curve about what's in this music. So Sonata number 2, I'm going to rewind to the beginning here just to show you the dedication. He dedicated each of these to famous people. So let's look at the dedication on Sonata Eroica. It's dedicated to Monsignor Charles Marie Widor and the great country to which he belongs. So as I mentioned, all of these sonatas were written either during or after the First World War. And Stanford himself was really traumatized by the experience. He moved out of London to live in Windsor at the time, and that's where he wrote these sonatas. He lost a number of his students during the war. So this sonata in particular pays homage to World War I. But it's very much a sonata of hope. There's so much that is uplifting here. So we're going to come back to the first movement, but Reims was a city in France, or is a city in France, that was heavily bombarded during First World War, and the great cathedral there was heavily damaged. And it was kind of a symbol of all of the damage that was happening to all that was cultural and sacred, and really affected the musical and artistic world. The second movement is a Marcia Solenne, a solemn march. And then the third movement is Verdun. So the Battle of Verdun was the longest running, it was essentially the biggest battle that had ever been seen by the world. And I'm sure in the chat, I look forward to hearing in your comments. Feel free to drop ideas in the chat, but also in the comments to this video. I'd love to kind of crowdsource ideas here as we're all learning together about these amazing pieces of music. So in Verdun, this one is not under the fingers yet, but I'm going to play a little bit of it for you anyway, because there are some unmistakable themes that you're going to hear. So I'm going to turn off my speech mic and attempt to fumble my way through the exposition or first part of this and see if you recognize some of the themes. I think you will. So there's that first theme that appears and continues to appear throughout this movement. And then later on, he gives us a second theme that he's going to develop. So there we go. Two very patriotic themes. And I know I shared this. I think, Maurice, if you're still in the chat, I think you remember when I first shared this, you said you were walking around waving your flag. This is an incredibly patriotic movement. And perhaps symbolizing everything that was going on at Verdun, he never quite finishes either theme. They're constantly there in the background, building and building and building, until it is finally stated at the very, very end. But it is an absolutely, absolutely wonderful movement. So my goal is that by Easter, I will be able to play that. We're getting there. Certainly takes, this is the kind of music that you just have to take over to the piano and work on some of those runs. But I'm certainly open to suggestions and ideas over there. I am just checking in here. I see, Mike, you had some issues with sound, but it looks like folks are saying that sound is okay. Oh, Mike, not at all. You hit an M and muted the sound. I tend to do issues like that myself all the time. It's cool discovering keyboard shorts and hidden features that are built into our software. So anyhow, that's the final movement. It's going to be a really, really rousing end to that sonata. So I'm now moving to introduce you to the themes from the March Solemn. Now, this one I'm going to play. So this first page should not be a problem. we'll see. And then I'm going to briefly show you some of the crazy, nutty harmony that he gets up to on the second page of this. But this one is getting pretty close. So let's have a listen to some of the March Solemnis. Stanford's just absolutely beautiful writing. And again, thinking about the context, his heart is heavy. He's lost some of his students. This is a really, really moving piece. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? So his one of the things that I've learned about Stanford is his slow movements never stay just like that. They go from that to, and again, now that I think about emotionally what he was trying to convey here, he's probably thinking about his students and about the loss of art and life. Again, the world has never seen anything like World War One before. He then moves on to this. And I'm going to leave the speech mic on and not go all the way to full organ here, but you're going to see he starts in E flat, and then down here he's in G flat, and by the time we get over here, I'm not sure, is Aaron still in the chat? His favorite key signature, C flat major, and then we end up back in E flat. But so I may fall over this, but let me play a little bit of it for you. So yes, by seeing the notes, you get to see all the wrong notes I play in there. But once I get my hands around that, you come out of that incredibly soft and luscious introduction into this, and it just kind of builds up to this kind of emotional climax there with C flat, because I guess why not? He's Stanford. Okay, so I'm now moving along to the first movement, and this is going to hopefully culminate in a full performance of this for you. But before I get to that, once again, let me introduce you to the themes that we're going to hear. I'm just taking a quick gander at the chat here. Graham, your comment, absolutely. He remains focused on dignity rather than pathos. Absolutely beautiful. Aaron, please no. Yes, indeed. All right. So, again, Reims is the cathedral city that has suffered greatly during World War I. And in this is very much a classic sonata form. So for those that may not be as familiar, what that involves is you have a piece of music that has a in musicology, we'll call it an exposition, development, recapitulation. Basically, exposition, we introduce the themes, then we do something with the themes, and then the themes come back from a grand finale. So there's kind of an A, B, A format to the whole thing. Also, very traditionally, there are two themes. So Stanford introduces a big theme, a little theme, and then he does stuff with them. So just to briefly give you a tour of this movement before I play it for you. So this is the first theme. And now you probably realize why I want to play this for Easter, because that is, "Oh, ye sons and daughters." I think that's the great Easter hymn. So I think he chose this theme given the symbolism of resurrection. So that is going to be a major theme that gets introduced, stated, and developed multiple times. Then our second theme is just a very beautiful and contrasting, which goes something a little bit like this. So there's a transition. You see. And then so on and so forth. So that's the second theme, which contrasts greatly. And then what I love about this movement, all of us organists love when things just get big and rowdy and boisterous, and there's certainly an abundance of that here. You can see, I love when composers say solo reed like that. That can only mean one thing, right? So there's our tuba solo, which brings us to this più mosso section. That's not really related to each of the others, but it's sort of, it's definitely fireworks. Then we have our middle section, then those themes are going to come back, and we'll have the grand finale. So I'm actually going to switch to the multicam view, sit back and enjoy the opening movement for Sonata Eroica, and I will check in with you on the other side. Wow. Well, I had a lot of fun playing that. I hope you all enjoyed that. I'm just looking back here through some of the comments. Yes, Aaron, you're correct. This is Billerbeck. It's actually one of my, well, for whatever reason, since they've added the tuba, it really suits particularly this sonata. So this is probably the organ that I will perform this on here. But thank you all for your kind words. And thank you all for tuning in. I see a couple of new names here. I just wanted to say hi. If I miss anybody, I apologize. But hi, Ralph. Thank you for dropping by. And Nancy, good to see you. And Richard Setting, wonderful to have you with us. Thank you so much. Again, absolutely a joy to spend this past just shy of an hour with you all. So, if you've enjoyed this, which I hope you have as much as me, please let me know in the comments what you think. This format will continue to evolve, but as I've thought about all of the music that I have looked at, and I'm starting to piece together and see the threads between these composers, it really is fascinating. It was an amazing time in music history, and this music is absolutely incredible and deserves to be heard. There is so much emotion in it. As a performer, I actually have to be careful not to get too carried away with it, but keeping the whole thing under control, yet getting that all out there. It is just absolutely wonderful. So I hope you've enjoyed this. And again, if you're an organist, consider adding some Stanford this year for Stanford 100. One of the unfortunate things about Stanford's legacy is particularly some of his keyboard works were eclipsed by Elgar, who his music is, of course, absolutely astonishing. But there were so many composers and authors working all about the same time. So Stanford got really known for his church music, but his non-church secular music is absolutely astonishing as well. And of course, Elgar was a student of Stanford. So in future episodes, we'll look at some of these students as well. We'll look at some of the people that preceded Stanford. It was perhaps referred to as the trip to Leipzig. So again, that German connection is there and really, really important. So once again, thank you all so much for dropping by. And we live in a very fortunate time that there are so many talented folks. Again, a lot of you are here. Please do check out Aaron Chow's. Please do check out, of course, Fraser's channel. Good chappy. We want to see more from you. Anyhow, let's all get some Stanford going this year. So I am going to sign off for now, and I look forward to seeing you at other virtual organ concerts this weekend. And I'm going to try and hold myself to, and every Saturday I'm going to try and share something from Stanford's collection or upload. So again, if you're subscribed, you'll get those video notifications for Saturday. And then once a month, on the third Saturday, assuming no other conflicts or other issues, we will meet like this and go through some music. So again, let me know what you think. And until next time, I wish you all the best from Ohio. Slán.